Chapter 4 The Ghostly Peat and the Mysterious Boat. A most curious thing happened the following day. Needless to say, Roy did not get up very early after his long trip over the mountains. He was stiff in every joint, and the sun was high in the heavens before he went down to breakfast. Nor were his father and uncle much ahead of him either. The three were in the midst of their meal when Mrs. Wallace, who had been serving in the store, came into the living room with Miss McKay, an old spinster of some 70 summers, now shaking from head to foot with mingled wrath and grief. "Mr. Wallace," she burst out almost before she was in the room, "somebody's stolen my Peat. They have, the mean things, robbing a poor old woman. It's a shame." "It can't be," replied the storekeeper. "Whoever would want your Peat? And there's no one in the village who would do such a thing. I don't remember a serious theft all the years I've lived here." "But they have stolen it," broke in Miss McKay. "I know they have. I dug it out about a month ago and left it all drying fine. Then I got rheumatics bad and couldn't go to bring it home. This morning, directly I got up, I went to fetch it, and it was gone. Hardly a square of it left, though I had dug 6 basketfuls at least. It's a shame to rob a poor, weak, sick old woman like that." Poor Miss McKay was greatly worked up, and it was a job for the listeners to get a word in edgewise, let alone get on with their breakfast. Presently they managed to convince her that they would do their best to find the missing Peat after breakfast, and with that assurance she left. Roy was all ears while the story was being told, and determined to take a prominent part in the coming peat hunt. He reasoned this way: 6 basketfuls of peat could not walk away by themselves. No one would take them over the mountains or away by boat. Therefore they must still be somewhere in or near the village. Moreover, a quantity of peat like that couldn't be easily hidden. Breakfast over, he started out, and meeting Oscar and Bruce, the three visited the spot where the villagers dug their peat, paying special attention to Miss McKay's plot. Sure enough, there was hardly a square left where her 6 basketfuls had been. Whither had all gone? The boys spent an hour or two in a fruitless search and then gave up, when Roy suggested that perhaps someone in the cave might have taken it. The other two treated the idea as a huge joke. "Why should anyone in the cave want Peat?" said Bruce with reason. Arriving home a little disappointed, Roy was met with the most staggering information. Miss McKay, having chanced to go round to the rear of her premises, which she had not thought to do in the morning, before visiting the plot of ground where she dug her peat, had found all her hard-earned fuel neatly stacked up behind her back garden wall. It was overwhelming. Poor Roy, who had hoped in his heart to find a clue to the other mysteries by solving the secret of the peat, felt deeper in the dark than before. In the afternoon he went on the beach and had a quiet chat with one of the old fishermen, John McCordell by name. Old Corky, as he was generally called, claimed to be the oldest man in the village, older than Peter MacDonald. He was beginning to suffer from the same complaints as Mrs. McKay, rheumatics. Like her, he often said he couldn't get about as he used to do. He was busy repairing his old boat, but he found the work a little trying to his back and legs. He was glad of Roy's help in turning the boat over so that he could tar the bottom, but well repaid him with thrilling tales of his life at sea. Together they tarred about a third of the bottom of the boat. Then, as old Corky began to feel some more rheumatickies pains, he decided to leave the rest till the next day. So bad did he get that the boat and tar were left as they were, and Roy helped the old man hobble home. A bright idea then struck Roy. He would get up early in the morning and have the boat tarred before old Corky could get there, and so give him a happy surprise. Accordingly, he went to bed early and got up about 5:30, reaching the boat soon after 6. As he drew nearer to it, he rubbed his eyes and pinched himself to make quite sure he was really awake. For there it lay, just as he had left it the night before, but completely tarred. Of course, it was possible that old Corky might perhaps have been there first. But no, on calling at his house, Roy discovered him still in bed. He made inquiries all around, but no one knew anything about it. It was uncanny, to say the least. Indeed, it began to look as if some of the villagers might be right when they affirmed that an angel must have taken up his silent and invisible abode at Longview Village. Roy, however, was confident that flesh and blood, though perhaps with an angelic heart, were responsible for the recent succession of kindly though mysterious actions. To him, there was one supreme question: who? And each succeeding mystery only strengthened his desire and determination to find the person or persons behind all the unusual happenings. After the boat incident, Roy resolved that if it meant staying up a whole night and patrolling the village all by himself, he would do it, if it would help to unravel the secret. But things now began to happen in the daytime. While one of the young fishermen's wives was away digging peat, the cottage being empty, the only clock she possessed was removed. True, it had not been going for a month or so, to its owner's great inconvenience and regret, but she had no desire to lose it altogether and in such a way. Nevertheless, it had vanished, and inquiries revealed nothing. Neighbors thought they had seen a strange man pass the house, while others felt sure that none but children had been about the place when the removal occurred. But there was no actual eyewitnesses. The clock was gone. But 2 days later, to the mingled amazement and joy of the young fisherwoman, she returned from a short absence to find it ticking away in its accustomed place, nicely polished and mended, almost as good as new. Of course, as usual, no one knew anything about it. Roy was puzzled. He could get no clue at all. He thought of every soul he knew in the village and tried to suspect them, but without success. He was certain now that someone was at the bottom of it all, yet he thought it was possible that the events were not connected. Perhaps it was his youthful ardor to be a detective that was making him jump to wrong conclusions. He would have to wait and see. It must be admitted he was rather suspicious of a certain youth about 17, Robert Malcolm by name. This lad had been seen on the Peats the night before Mrs. McKay's fuel was moved. Some were sure he had passed the fisherwoman's house about the time the clock was restored. Some remembered he had been out late of nights recently. Could he be the one? It was possible. He was a very quiet lad. It didn't mix with the other boys very much. Roy would watch him closely. Thinking deeply, he wended his way the following evening out of the village southward, in the direction of the cave. This way, after less than a mile, the ground rose steeply, and the boulder-strewn hillsides made walking rather difficult. Roy climbed some distance up and then, feeling too tired for a purposeless climb, turned to descend. He looked on the ground to make sure of his footing, and as he did so, something strange lying on the top of a cluster of heather attracted his attention. He stooped and picked it up. It was a piece of rusty clock spring.